Your time is now. The world needs leaders. It's up to you to answer the call. Be better in business. Be better in life. Joined by our host, Chris Book. This is Leading by the Book.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Leading by the Book. I'm not really sure what episode number this is, but that is irrelevant because we have a wonderful, wonderful guest in studio sitting across from me, and if I am correct, I believe it is his first time on a podcast.
It is.
And that man is Tim Barrett. Welcome.
Wow, thank you.
So Tim and I have known each other for probably, I'm going to say 6 months, might be a little longer. I think it was a little longer than that probably, actually. End of last summer. And a lot of you may know, the millions and millions of listeners, that is, may know, that I recently exited the consulting world after being in that for a little bit of time there, during a little bit of a hiatus in my life. And I re-entered the corporate world for a variety of reasons, one being that I really, really missed working in organizations and leading teams and things like that. But two, because I somehow found a really cool company here in Phoenix, where we relocated, that had a great group of people and people that I really wanted to work with. And that company is Raceway Express Car Wash, and Tim is the founder and CEO of Raceway. And to put it simply, we wash cars.
Yes, and we needed some adult supervision.
There's that. I'm not sure how much of that I can really lend.
Chris is the adult supervision.
But we have a lot of fun, and I can say I have an absolute blast going to work every day. And one of the reasons that I wanted Tim to come on the show, beyond just the fact that we work together every day, we spend a lot of time together, is that even before Raceway became an option for us to work together, Tim was somebody that really impressed me. We're part of a group here locally. We meet on Wednesday mornings. It's a men's group, and we talk about faith and business and different issues we're having in our lives. And it's just been a really awesome group to be a part of. And Tim was somebody that I was drawn to right away, and we started having a lot of conversations. We have a lot of shared interest. We're probably the only people we know that actually do meditate.
Yes.
Which I suppose is...
Actually, that's a funny story.
Go on.
Well, what was it, the first day I met you?
It was probably day one. Yeah.
It was probably day one.
It's probably day one.
What did you ask me?
If you meditate.
Yeah, you did. We're sitting there having a regular conversation, and he looks me dead in the eye, and he says, "Do you meditate?" And of course, I had to say yes.
Yeah, and to this day, I think you're the only other person I know that actually does. But it shows. You're very zen. I wish I was more zen. I'm a little bit more on the aggression side, I suppose. Maybe that's the title of this podcast, Zen Aggression.
That's right, Zen Aggression.
Maybe we go with that. But where I was going with this is, as I got to know you a little bit, I think you have a really cool story. Going back to growing up, and just as you've talked about your life a little bit, and to where you've gotten and what you do now, it's a pretty cool story, and it's something I think a lot of people can benefit from. So let's go back to the beginning.
Okay.
Where did things start for young Tim Barrett, and how did you get to where you're at right now?
Oh, geez.
That's sort of a long answer.
All the way to the beginning?
Well, it depends how far back to the beginning you want to go.
We'll go. I'll give you the brief beginning because I think it is relevant. So I was an accident. I was born to teenage parents. They were 16 and 17. When they found out that I was coming into the world, and interestingly, they're still married, which is very unique these days. Very loving parents.
That alone is actually pretty remarkable.
It is. They were teenagers.
That's very cool.
And had me, and we lived with my grandma, my grandpa, my mom, my dad, and two uncles. I have an uncle who's really more kind of like a brother. He's only 5.5 years older than I am. So when I was born, we all lived there. And then I have an uncle who's older than my mom. So at the time, he was probably maybe 20 or so. And we all lived at the time in a single wide modular home on 11 acres in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And we were there for the first 2 years of my life. So
I don't suppose you remember any of that.
I don't really remember any of that. Been told a lot of stories about that, and there's a lot of. I used to love being there. My grandparents sold the place. 10 years ago or something like that. But I used to love being up there.
11 acres in the mountains, though. There's a little bit of paradise in that.
It was great. Yeah, it was beautiful. Overlooked this kind of empty valley of rolling hills and oak trees. It's great. And so anyway, my dad had numerous jobs. Ended up finally settling into a career with Nabisco. He's been there most of his life through several different ownerships. They're now owned by Mondelez. Used to be Kraft. Before that, it was RJR.
Yep.
And he was a truck driver most of my life when I was a kid, which meant he went to work crazy early, and he got home equally early. Probably worked 12-hour days, but he was home by 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and we played baseball. And he was really into sports and baseball, and I wasn't, but I played anyway until I broke his heart in high school. So that's a short version of my childhood. I got a brother and a sister. They're both a bit younger than I am. My younger brother is 5.5 years younger than I am, and my sister, she's 8 years younger than I am. So I sort of grew up like an only child ish.
No, I grew up an only child. It was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I suppose, probably the worst too.
Yeah, that's questionable.
But I guess so.
Yeah,
diving into that though, what are the lessons or the things that shaped you take away from that? From seeing your dad work such long days, but the fact that you still had seemingly a good relationship with him, you spent a lot of time with him.
Mm-hmm.
It does seem like there have to be a variety of lessons that came out of that have been very beneficial.
I had a great dad. He worked hard. And I remember when I was first starting out in my career, very first job I ever had, he said, your company doesn't owe you anything. And what he meant by that was you got to bust your ass. And they don't owe you anything. And we just work hard. I was a bit more ambitious, than he was, but I remember.
Was that ambition something they encouraged though, or was that something you arrived at on your own?
Man, I don't know. I remember being a teenager. My parents are pretty timid people, very kind, but they're not taking life by the horns. You know what I mean? When I was late teens, still in high school, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what do I want to do when I grow up? And college was out of the question. My parents didn't have the money for college. I didn't even know how to go to college. It seems like a funny thing to say, but that just nobody went to college. So I didn't even know what that meant.
So where you grew up in that community, it was just not even a conscious thought for a lot of people. It was out of their mind completely.
Well, no, some kids were. In fact, I remember in junior high, one of my school counselors said, "Are you going to go to college?" And I said, "I don't know." And so they put me on the not going to college track, which meant I took a different set of classes. And I suppose if I would have answered that question differently, they would have put me on a different track.
Okay, so I got to understand this here for a minute. And we actually, in that group that I alluded to earlier, am I allowed to say the name, or is it some kind of secret thing?
It's definitely a secret society.
Okay, good enough. So that organization that I will not name, we actually got into, I'm not going to say a heated debate, because it was a very respectful debate, but a deep debate about whether or not college is actually worth it. And there were a large number of people in that group that are highly educated, very successful, at least by the world standards, who had said, yeah, I'm not necessarily sure I even want to send my kids to college, in the sense I don't know if it's...
Yeah, I was in an island.
You were.
I was on an island in that conversation.
You were. And frankly, where I'm at, I'm actually not sure
Sure.
of the value in it.
Yeah, well, I knew that from the conversation.
Yeah, that became pretty clear. but we have millions and millions of listeners that I'm sure are interested in where we fell on that. But the question is, I'm very interested going back to that time, because whether or not, those of us now that think we're smart say college isn't valuable.
And I think this was part of it. When I was a teenager, I remember thinking, okay, my dream was to have my wife be able to stay home with my kids if she wanted. My mom stayed home. She did daycare with us, but we didn't have much. And I kind of wanted, a little bit more and just for my wife to be able to stay home. And I thought, in order to do that, I gotta make $100,000. That's what I was trying to figure out.
What high school kid has that thought? Like, that's an advanced thought for a high school kid.
I don't know. I was nuts. Maybe I don't know. Listened to too much Zig Ziglar or something. But anyway, I'm sitting on my bed. I distinctly remember this, and I'm doing the math, and I'm thinking,
in high school, you're 16 years old doing this math.
I'm in high school. Yeah, I'm doing the math. I'm thinking, okay, my dad makes $18 an hour. Doing the math, like, no, that doesn't work. Okay, my uncle, he's a carpenter. He makes $25 an hour. Like, no, that doesn't work. Well, I know my dad's friend. He's an electrician. I think he makes $35 an hour, which why I knew what all these people made an hour is kind of strange to begin with, but I did. And I remember going through that and getting back to my point about the college thing. My world was small. That sounds terrible.
No, it makes perfect sense.
My world was limited, right? So
Sure.
the opportunities that I could see around me to say I could emulate that were limited. And for some reason, I knew what real estate agents made. They make a percentage of how much something sells for, and so I'm doing that math, and I'm like, well, I could do it that way. So I thought, I'm going to get into real estate. That's how it started. That's why I'm in real estate.
But I go back to that guidance counselor, though.
Actually, I wash cars, but...
I love when you say that, and what people don't realize that yes, you wash cars, but I guess the company now is the 7th or 8th, depending on what you look at, 7th or 8th largest car wash chain in the country, and
tallest midget in the circus.
So I think it's impressive. We'll get back to that, but I'm curious though, going back to that guidance counselor, because this was 20 years ago or so, and in those days, in those time I grew up, like even in small town Beloit, Wisconsin, where I grew up, which is not a wonderful place to live. It's a very, very blue collar town with a lot of issues. Not saying that a blue collar town is not a nice place to live, but I'm curious because even in that environment, there was such a push for people to go to college, and I'm curious that your guidance counselor in that environment is like, all right, well, this kid's clearly smart. If you're sitting there calculating what it takes to make,
I didn't think I was very smart.
You might not have thought that.
I got bad grades.
Okay, but I just from an interaction standpoint, I think any good guidance counselor should be able to see behind that. Maybe not in this case, but I would expect that. And I think this is a serious leadership lesson for a lot of people. And I guess after all, the show is about leadership. But when you're leading a team, your job is to see in people many times what they don't see in themselves. And I'm really curious how that guidance counselor was so quick to accept no, not going to college for an answer and write you off and put you on a different track versus actually spending the time to understand you and try to see beyond whatever grades you might have had or whatever. Because it's clear interacting with you. Like there's a high level of intelligence here. And okay, yeah, that was 20 years ago, but this stuff doesn't come overnight. It had to be there at the beginning. So
right. Yeah,
for some reason, that's just really eating at me here.
Well, and you touched on something. I think that's what really drives me is seeing potential in people that they don't see in themselves. That inspires me.
Yeah, and
like
you do read people very well. And one of the things I think you spend a lot of time doing, maybe you don't give yourself credit for, is looking at skill sets of our team. We have people on our team now that are doing things completely different than they might be doing here in a year. It's probably because you take a hard look at that, but whether you're a baseball coach for kids, whether you're a guidance counselor, a teacher, whatever it is, taking things for what they are on the surface, I think is is a very dangerous thing to do. So, all right, so I'll take that guidance counselor off the hot seat here, even though.
Well, you can put there was a professor too. I don't know. This was in college. This was in high school. So there was a teacher. He was not a professor. And because I was in the not college track, right? Okay. So he actually highlighted it at one point was, hey, guys, if you're in this class, you're not going to college. And you're probably not going to make, very much money. And just launched into this whole thing about how we were on the wrong track. I was like, maybe it worked. Maybe he wasn't intending to discourage us. But I've always thought back at that too. And was like, screw that guy.
You ever seen him since?
Nope. I remember his name.
I'm tempted to give it out here right now.
I don't want to say it in public. It is a funny name, though.
I'm going to chase this one down after the fact because I'd like to pay this person a visit. But nonetheless, but that's I get on this tangent of like for me, I'm obsessed with this idea of maximizing based upon abilities or blessing or inputs, whatever it is that you have, and it drives me nuts when I think that I left something on the table in the sense of I could have done more, I could have learned more, I could have read more, I could have written more, something more that I could have done. And it drives me nuts when you see people to just limit this. You're a bad coach for 8-year-olds, and suddenly you have a guy that could have hit 63 bombs in the big leagues that never picks up a baseball bat again because you had an ego trip when you were coaching 8-year-olds and you were reliving whatever glory days you might have had. Like stuff like that just really eats at me. And I'm probably being a little bit too fanatical about this, but when you're a leader, when you're running a team, these things matter. Like your job is to get more out of people than they think they can get out of themselves. And so when you're a guidance counselor just saying, okay, this guy said no, he's not going to college, it doesn't really matter what the kid says. It's what you see in them that counts.
That's my hope. I mean, if we could use a car wash company to like raise up leaders to go on and do great things, whether with us or without us, like that would, I'd get super excited about that.
Yeah, and I want to get back to that car wash component in a minute, because there are a lot of things within this company that are different things that are very attractive. But so after high school, though, what do you do?
I took a break. So actually before I had the whole math equation sitting in my bed trying to figure out, okay, this person make this much and I'm going to go into real estate, I thought I wanted to be a youth pastor.
Okay.
And I wanted to go to Bible college, and then I just had this thought that wasn't what I was supposed to do. And so I was a little bit confused. I also didn't know how to apply for college, so I didn't. We moved. My parents, coincidentally, they sold their house I grew up in the Bay Area, just south of the Bay Area. And they sold their house. We moved to Reno. I went with them. I kind of wandered around a little bit. I took a couple community college courses here and there. I remember when I showed up with my high school transcripts and wanted to enroll in classes at this community college, they said, we don't know what the heck your math class is, so you need to take this placement test. I tested into math 095, which was like remedial. I had to take like 2 remedial classes before I could get into college algebra.
So you're like doing long division.
Oh, it was terrible. It was terrible.
Okay, here's what I don't get on this.
I was totally behind.
So, and I'm gonna steal a little bit of the suspense here. So, years later, you ultimately ended up in real estate, and we'll get to that more. But I've seen you at a whiteboard rattle off cap rates and doing math in your head and stuff like that. This just doesn't add up to me.
Yeah, I was a very timid kid. I still am slightly.
What was it that it took you longer to develop, or was it that you just never got out of your shell?
Yes. I think I was timid. I think I was not confident. I think, I think it was some of that. It just took me a while to figure out who I was, I guess.
Okay. That's all right. So you're in Reno. You're taking Math 095.
Yeah, Math 095. And, yeah, it was terrible. I had to take Math 095, Math 096, Math 105. I think 105 was technically a college course, but it was like the lowest math class, something like that. Ended up moving to Tahoe, met my wife. She's amazing. And you know what? Like a lot of this is credit to her. She really believed in me.
Okay, so how did this meeting happen?
Meeting my wife?
Yeah.
We met at church.
Okay.
You want the real story? This might sound weird on your podcast.
Well, of course I want the real story.
Okay, you can filter it if you want. So, moved to Reno, moved out with some friends. We lived in what I like to call the commune. There were 12 of us living in a 5-bedroom house. And we were just screwing around, having fun, going ice blocking in the middle of the night, playing capture the flag, just being really goofy. And getting into good trouble. And one of the gals that lived with us was going to church in Tahoe. And we'd make fun of her, why can't you find God in Reno? And finally, we decided, all right, we got to check this out. So a buddy of mine, we went up there, check out this church. And that's when I met my wife. We met at that church, and I really enjoyed the church, so I moved up there. Had nothing else going. I moved to Tahoe. I was working at Safeway at the time, stocking shelves.
Okay.
Yep.
Safeway in Tahoe?
Safeway in Reno,
Okay.
and then Safeway in Tahoe. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Been to that Safeway in Tahoe a few times.
Yeah. Yeah, so most of my family, most of my family are police officers.
Okay.
But a significant portion of them have or do work for Safeway.
Well, in that part of the country, Safeway's dominant.
Yeah. So I worked there for 5 years in different cities.
Okay.
And moved to Tahoe, met my wife, and the short version is, as things started getting serious, realized, I forgot to go to college. I never figured out how. And, I took like the remedial courses and stuff. I was a fire science major for a while, but most of what I took at the junior colleges, or the community colleges, didn't count. So we moved to Phoenix, where my wife's from, and I went to Paradise Valley Community College, and then ASU.
But you said that a lot of this was driven by your wife Stacy. So where did this come from? You were alluding to the fact, I think, that she saw something in you, saw whether it was ambition or capability or aptitude, whatever that is. So how did she draw that out of you?
I remember talking to her. This is when we were still in Tahoe, and I was working at the grocery store, and I had shared with her my dream of maybe I could, get into real estate. And her family is very entrepreneurial, and I remember her saying, well, how'd it go? I think she began to slowly draw it out of me. She's like, well, yeah, you could sell the house, but maybe you could build one too. I was like, yeah, I could build a house. And then she'd draw out of me, and maybe you could build a few houses. I was like, yeah, maybe I could build a few of them, over a lifetime is what I'm thinking. And she's like, at the same time, like, so she's just slowly drawing out of me, like expanding my world bigger and bigger.
But she's making you believe along the way.
Yes. Yeah. And then we moved to Phoenix, and, one book that was actually really opened my mind a lot was actually Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
And I realized a lot of what he says in that book I believed. Meaning, like the poor dad side, that I believed, and that I had to change my mind to, rich dad
Yeah.
thinking.
Okay, so you get to Arizona. You're starting to believe now. You've got this in your head that this fire's been lit. You end up you go to PV Community College. You end up at ASU.
Yeah, start to finish. Once I actually had a plan, I graduated in 3 years.
Okay.
We were on a flat run.
And so here's a question. So you were a little bit older when you were at ASU. How old were you when
22.
You were 22 at ASU?
When I started.
When you
25
started.
when I graduated.
Okay, so you're about 3 years older than most people there.
Yep.
Because you had lived a little bit, you'd been out on your own a little bit more. Did you find that time more valuable than most of the kids that were there with you at the time?
I just did that weird thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it's interesting. I was on a flat run. So
You were laser focused.
I was laser focused. I mean, Stacy and I were very serious. We got married a year into being in college. We had my first son a year after that, and I graduated a year after that. And my goal was to get out of college before he even remembered that I wasn't around.
Yeah.
During that time, not only was I going to school more than full time, I was working 2 jobs more than full time, and we kind of started flipping houses a little bit. Our own house. So we'd buy something, fix it up, sell it. And we did that 3 or 4 times while in college. So I remember, my wife, she's just always been an encouragement. And I'm a very, while I am zen, I'm also very fragile. And so I remember just falling apart one day. I'm like, I can't keep up with all this, And
So you got the 2 jobs and you're in school. And
2 jobs in school, flipping houses,
one.
got a 1-year-old son by the time I graduated. and she said, soon this will all just be a bad dream. I'm like, okay. All right. Fortunately, no one's ever asked to see my grades. That's been good.
Yeah, but that's such a but before we started recording here, and I'm seeing over there now, you've got one of my Stoicism books sitting in front of you. That is a very stoic response to that.
Yeah?
It is. Even looking back, the Super Bowl this year, one of the guys from the Rams gets up at the podium after they lost. And he's like, didn't really want to lose, but you know what? We're all going to die.
That's right.
And, I think a lot of people came out and was like, wow, that guy's nuts, or he's really dark or whatever. But that's sort of, in a weird way, what Stacey was saying. This will pass.
Yeah.
And when you're in the midst of those struggles, it's very easy to dig yourself into a hole, and you can dig yourself into a hole such that you don't take action, that you become paralyzed by it.
Right.
Keeping that perspective that this either is going to pass, or worst case, at some point I will no longer be on this earth.
Right.
That actually makes things better.
It's funny that you say that, because I frequently say none of us are getting out of here alive.
We're not. That's a fact. I'm not a scientist. I know Elon's probably working on this right now, or actually it seems more like a Peter Thiel thing, but we're not going to get out of here alive. And while we work as hard as we can on a lot of things every day, it doesn't necessarily matter sometimes. It matters a lot in the moment, but when you go outside at night and you just kind of look at how big the sky is and all that, this isn't as big as we make it out to be sometimes. And it's kind of like, control what you can control, do the right things.
Right.
But whatever's imposed on you by the world, not really as bad as it might seem.
Right.
Okay, so you get out of ASU.
Yep.
You're flipping houses still.
I flipped a couple houses, yeah.
Okay.
But mostly, so by the time I got out of ASU, I was working for, so I wanted to be a developer, right? My wife's planted that seed. That's what I thought. I thought I want to be a real estate developer.
So here's the question.
Yeah.
Did she plant that seed, or was that seed in you and she essentially watered it?
Well, the real estate seed was in me. I thought, that's how I'm going to support my family. I'm going to be in real estate. And I think she planted the, maybe you could not just sell it, but you could build it.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, and then the whole rich dad poor dad thing, like that was
Sure.
monumental, right? So that's more of a, you could own it, keep it and start building streams of cash flow. So I saw three ways into that. Really. Because you got to have some way to cover the overhead personally. So I thought, okay, I could either be a real estate broker, right? So no longer I'm going to sell houses. I was, she's got my vision up. I'm going to go into commercial real estate, right? So I worked for a real estate broker trying to figure out if that's what I liked. Or I could work for a builder. I thought, general contracting, third party, cover the personal overhead personally that way, buy a piece of dirt, build a building, own it, build streams of cash flow. So I thought that was the second way I could do it. And then the third way I could do it, I thought was getting into the financing aspect. So I actually did all three. In college, I worked for the broker. I didn't like that. That didn't fit my personality. After college, I worked for a builder. We were building little 7,000 to 15,000 square foot industrial buildings and selling them. And this was before the market crashed. And then we got into third-party general contracting, kind of as the market was crashing. And then I thought I got to figure out how these people get these things financed. So actually, when the market crashed, this is actually kind of a funny story too. I had an opportunity to go work for a bank, actually a pretty large bank in their commercial real estate group, and because I wanted to see how these deals get done. And those were the three ways I thought that I could go do what I wanted to do.
Okay, so you're doing this. You're learning all these different sides of this business. Market crashes.
Yep.
Then what?
Actually, before the market crashed, one of the partners at the little development company I was working for, my intention was to buy out those partners at some point. I didn't know how to do it. That's what I had in my head. I wanted to buy them out. They were getting older, and my hope was, I could take their book of business and continue to grow it. As the market was crashing, I realized, or starting to slow, this is like 2007. I started to realize, this probably isn't going to happen. 2008, starting to slow even more. I'm seeing, our pipeline of work starting to slow down, and one of the partners' brothers came to him and said, he worked for the bank, and he said, "Hey, we're looking for somebody in our construction risk group. And do you know anybody?" And he said, "Well, we're not looking to get rid of Tim, but he's looking for opportunity. Wanted to talk to him." So I actually started with J.P. Morgan Chase in their commercial real estate group a week before Lehman Brothers failed.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And so I get this job, I'm super excited. I'm going to get to learn how these deals get financed. And I'm in training. I know nothing. And they call us in a little room and they tell us Lehman Brothers has failed and we need to go through our portfolio and figure out where our exposure is to them. And I'm thinking, well, who the heck are those guys and what do I care about them? I knew nothing. and the market's going up and down, and just everything's going haywire, and stopped lending and all this stuff. And then a week later, they eliminated an entire floor of my counterparts. And I'm thinking, what the heck did I get myself into? So that was exciting. I thought I was going to lose my job, but then we bought the bank. Not me, but the bank bought Washington Mutual, and we started digging through their portfolio and finding some really interesting stuff.
If I'm going back to that, and this is a little bit unrelated, but was WAMU the deal that was pushed on Chase by the government?
I don't know. I don't know if they had to do it, or I don't know the circumstances of it. Could have been.
Yeah. Okay, so you're at Chase. You're learning this business, seeing how the ins and outs work.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next step?
So let's see, what happened first? I think I started buying houses when the market crashed, because I'd wanted to buy a house to rent, to have some cash flow before the market crashed. And I remember this guy. This is when stuff was crazy hot. I remember this guy. He's got this. I don't remember how I found him, like advertisement on TV or something like that. And he was like, "I'll show you how to invest in real estate." And so he's really a real estate broker, and he's sending me listings, and he sits down with me and he says, "Well, how much cash do you have? How much credit card availability do you have? How much everything do you have?" And he shows me this deal, and he says, "You got to act now. Do you want to buy it?" And so I've always been somewhat analytical, and the math thing was funny, right? Because I had remedial courses, and then I got my degree's in global business with an emphasis in finance. So
polar opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, a little bit. So, but anyway, I'm fairly analytical. So he says, "You want to buy this deal?" So the first thing I do is I pull out a spreadsheet, start running the numbers. I'm like, I'm going to lose like $250 a month. I don't want to do that. And he got so mad at me. He's like, "This is an opportunity, and you're totally passing it up, and I can't waste sending people opportunities if they're not going to purchase them when I send them to them." And I was like, okay. So I felt like about that big. And so anyway, fast back forward to where we were. Finally, they started making sense, right? Because you could buy these things for like 30 cents on the dollar for what they were before. And, so I started buying houses, cashed out my 401k, and, bought a couple houses. I didn't have a ton of money and ran out of money. And so circled some friends and family and said, "Hey, here's the opportunities and here's what we could do." And by that time, I'd started to see how the real estate syndicators that we supported at the bank were doing things. And I realized something clicked.
It seemed like there was a switch in confidence here along the way, too.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Actually, our secret society we were referring to earlier, that was born out of another secret society. And actually, it sounds entirely too cryptic to call them secret societies.
I kind of like it, though.
Yeah, that's kind of fun.
They're not. It gives a little bit of mystique. It's Phoenix. Nothing that interesting happens in Phoenix.
No, but there should. We should start these rumors. So just to make it more interesting. But
we'll go with that.
Yeah. So there was a conference, right, that they put on, and I got selected to go to this conference, and it was real confidence booster. It's where I began to reach out to mentors and learn and all sorts of stuff.
So you're just hungry to soak in everything you can at this point, or soak up everything you can.
Right. Yeah, but there was, I don't know what the start of it was. If we back up on the mentor thing, I remember my wife had always encouraged me to find people and go to coffee with them and things of that sort. And I was always timid. I don't want to bother anyone. And the broker that I worked for in college, he was actually one of my first mentors, right? So I'd ask him if I could take him to lunch, every other month or so, and kind of pick his brain on stuff. He was he was successful, and he had good family, and so someone I admired. And the only thing I actually really remember still is he would always tell me to put my family first. Always. So that started the whole confidence thing, I think, right? Yeah. So reaching out to people and realizing that people want to help.
Isn't it amazing how
you're not a burden?
We build this up in our heads that
totally.
They're never going to make time for me, or I'm cluttering up their inbox or whatever.
Yeah.
It's amazing that when you start asking people their opinion or ask them to tell their story, it's amazing how willing people are to share truly valuable gold nuggets with you.
People want to help. I mean, I think about it at my phase of life now. I'm sure you feel the same way. Like when somebody reaches out to me and says, "Hey, would you have coffee with me? I got this going on, and I just would like to get your perspective on that." Or I'd it's like, wow, this person looks up to me or looks at me in this way. Of course, I want to help this person. Especially if they're if they've got stuff together and.
My first instinct or my first response is typically, yeah, absolutely. And my second one is, the hell do they want to know from me?
I know, seriously.
Really? I guess
it's funny, but it's an honor. It's an honor.
It is,
but
I still feel like I'm a 21-year-old college kid sometimes.
Well, I do too.
And maybe that's a good thing, but and I guess we've both been very lucky to see a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I guess I look at that and I don't think it's necessarily because of anything I've done skill-wise, at least in my perspective. I feel like I've just been in the right place at the right time and had a lot of great people looking out for me.
Right.
But if I can make that valuable for other people, then at least I'm making good on some of the things I've been given.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is like the way in which I live my life. I think about this. If you don't know where you're going, there isn't anybody in the world that can tell you how to get there. But if you do know kind of where you want to go, even if you don't know how to get there, you can start to ask people, and they're usually pretty friendly, to want to help.
Yeah.
I mean, if you cold call somebody and you're like, "Hey, I want to pick your brain," but if you even remotely have an acquaintance and you're approaching them in a respectful way, they're usually willing to help.
And frankly, that's how relationships grow anyway.
Right.
So, yeah, it's
right. Yeah, exactly.
When we build these things up too in our heads, we're like, oh, this person's so smart, or they've got their, it's going to be embarrassing for me. They're going to think I'm an idiot. Well, here's the thing: we're all sort of full of crap to an extent.
Yeah. Well, I think Tim Ferriss isn't in his book. What does it say? If you're afraid, don't worry. So is everybody else. I'm pretty sure that's Tim Ferriss.
It sounds like him, and he's right. Well, yeah, he had that thing in his book about fear, which, by the way, is another thing rooted in Stoicism.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, was it 4 Hour Workweek, where he was encouraging people to do things that made them dramatically uncomfortable, like lay down on a sidewalk in the middle of the day and during rush hour or whatever, stuff like that.
Yeah,
which that's maybe a little bit of an extreme, but I think coming back to the people component of it, one, to your point, people generally want to help, but two, even the person that looks like they have it totally figured out is still figuring it out.
Right.
So
right.
And
what I think what I've learned at this point is you want to help that guy out, because that guy, I don't know, you might be working for that guy soon, or that guy might be able to help you out in the future. It's not necessarily this hierarchical thing.
Yeah. Well, and part of it too is just taking an interest in people.
Right.
And it's one thing to go into something and really look for advice, and you can get that too, but sometimes it's just taking an interest in it. It's like, the reason that you and I are probably sitting here right now is because we randomly sat next to each other at our illustrious secret society breakfast, and you were talking about the things you had going on with the car, which we start talking about books, and I was new to Phoenix at the time and genuinely interested in that, and I don't know, there's old cliches, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take and stuff like that, but just put yourself out there and take an interest in people.
Right.
And that's really hard for me too, because I'm an only child, and I'm, I kind of lock myself away and read my books and study and write stuff down. Taking that that proactive step of truly investing in other people just sitting down with them and talking to them has been a hard thing for me to learn how to do, to the point I had to force myself to do it and make myself uncomfortable for a long time, because it doesn't come natural to a lot of people.
Right. Well, and I think it comes back to even the story that I was saying when I was sitting on my bed and I'm calculating how much does the carpenter make. I remember, what that is when you're expanding your world around you of opportunities. I think you begin to see the path that you could potentially take. Okay, this person got there by doing this. I could kind of go that way a little bit, and then this person got to this thing by doing that. Kind of.
Yeah, and it's not even a conscious thing too.
It's a meander.
So sometimes these things just fall into place because you've surrounded yourself with people, and it's sort of the rising tide lifts all ship thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So getting back to the chronology here. So
totally forgot where we are.
We're somewhere post real estate crash.
Post real estate crash,
Yeah.
I started buying houses.
Yes.
Ran out of money, circled some friends and family, invested in more houses. We had, 15 or so. Not a ton, but. And
for a guy that has bought one home in his entire life, and it's the home that he lives in, like you're talking about things that seem totally unobtainable. I have no idea how anybody even goes about doing that.
Yeah. It's doable. It's doable. We can have coffee. I'll tell you how I did it. Okay, where was I? I transitioned from the construction side of the bank to the credit side of the bank in an attempt to learn more. And I really saw three kinds of balance sheets as I was going through that. So not only did I learn how do these real estate syndicators do things, but I learned the different ways in which people would do it. There was, and granted, I mean this is JP Morgan Chase, so we had big clients, right? So it still works at a smaller scale, but there was really kind of three types of balance sheets. There was the first balance sheet was really just the cowboys. These guys were levered to the hill, using all their own money. They got lots of real estate. They got lots of recourse debt, which means the bank can come after not just the asset, but they can come after you personally. And they're leveraged up. And when the market's rising, they're making a ton of money because they don't have any partners. When the market's crashing, they got a lot of problems because it's just them. Their assets are struggling. They're usually over leveraged, and the banks are coming after them. Then I saw the guys in the middle. Of course, you got to remember, my perspective was during the greatest crash of our lifetime.
That was also tremendously fortuitous, I imagine.
Oh yeah, no, I learned a ton. It was an amazing opportunity. I hated it, but I learned a ton, and it was an amazing opportunity. So, second balance sheet I saw was the guys. I actually really liked this one. The first guys actually, so they were worth in the $10 to $75 million range net worths, which is a lot. But again, big bank, right? So we had big clients. And then there was the guys in the middle. They had a lot of cash on their balance sheet, a lot of non-recourse debt. They usually syndicated their deals out, meaning they had equity partners that participated with them. If the deal did well, they participated in the profits. They usually were not over-leveraged because banks are more conservative when they know they can only go after the asset and not the person personally. So they were able to buy through the entire cycle. So these guys, when the market crashed, these guys got a bunch of cash on their balance sheet. They're able to buy stuff and take the best opportunities. They killed it. Those guys were worth, again, qualification, JP Morgan Chase, big bank. These guys were worth $100 to $300 million net worth. I liked the way they did things. And then there was the almost billionaire guys. These were the REITs, the big funds. These were just big balance sheets. They usually were not investing their own money. Where both the guys on the front, they're investing all their money. The guys in the middle, they're co-investing alongside their LPs. The guys at the top, they're not investing at all. They're managing like a REIT or a big fund or something like that. They're taking massive fees off the top, right? So they're taking all kinds of crazy fees. Those guys were worth a ton, but I didn't really like their business as much because it didn't feel really good. Like they made money when other people invested rather than when their investors made money. Like the guys in the middle, they make money when their investors make money. I like that. I like that business. But I learned a lot there. And it was painful because a lot of my job was just sifting through loans and figure out, okay, is there enough equity in this deal? No. Mr. Borrower, you need to make a capital contribution. Yes, you will. Okay, great. No, you won't. All right, that goes off to some special group. And so it wasn't a lot of fun, but I learned a lot. Then let's see. Then what happened? So they had to kind of all the senior people were taking care of the problem credits at the time. That's why I even had the opportunity to begin with. And when the market started to come back, they basically collapsed the special credits side and brought them back into the good bank side as they started to originate again. And so I actually lost my job. So they eliminated my position. They offered me another position in the bank with some kind of weird tax credit financing business, which is kind of bizarre the way that gets done. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do something a little more entrepreneurial. We had a bunch of houses at this time.
This is what year?
This is 2013.
Okay.
We had a bunch of houses at the time, and I was trying to figure out how do I buy a little apartment building. Had an investment thesis that, there's all these crappy little apartment buildings owned by old guys that aren't putting any money into them, and we could fix them up and rent them for more, and that would increase the value. And so I was trying to figure out how to do that. So I decided I was going to get into commercial mortgage brokerage to cover the overhead personally and still look for deals. And I did that for a very short period of time. In the process of trying to develop a client list, I met my partner now. And I was unsuccessful in getting any of his business, but, we'd kind of hit it off. We talked about, me buying a bunch of little houses and trying to figure out how to buy an apartment building. And it was one of those mentor type relationships a little bit, where I'm, asking him questions about how he got into it and how he did it. And he actually called me up one day. He says, "Hey, are you serious about wanting to buy a little apartment building?" I said, "Heck yeah, man. I'm totally trying to figure it out." He said, "I just had a deal come across my desk that kind of fits what you were saying you wanted to do. Do you want to do it?" I said, "Yeah, let's do it." And he said, "Well, I want you to," he said, "Are you making any money over there?" I said, "Well, not really. I mean, I just, I closed one deal, been doing it for 3 months." And he said, "Well, I want you to do it over here with me. And, we'll invest together and I'll pay you to manage it." So I said, "Sweet, let's do it." And so we started buying and renovating little apartment buildings. And, yeah. And then car washes, right? So I guess I got to finish this story. All this is getting fairly long-winded here. We said, well, okay, now we're buying and selling these little apartment buildings. We only make money when we sell them. What do we do if we can't sell one? Let's look for an operating company on a real estate asset that'll produce some good cash. And we found a few little car washes. And here we are today.
And that is the beginning of Raceway Express Car Wash.
That is the beginning of Raceway Express Car Wash.
So what fascinates me about this company now, so the company now is 36 or so locations, and you're in, I guess we're in four states.
Yep.
We're in California, Nevada, Texas, and Arizona. So you go from a guy that was in the real estate world, very entrepreneurial, working by yourself, and then eventually with a partner. And then in the course of about 3 years, you now have, I guess, how big is the company? It's close to 500 employees.
Yeah, we got like 420 was the last
420.
number I heard.
Yeah. So you are now the CEO of a 420-person organization. And so
I prefer when they call me like founder or CEO. Just I don't know.
I think it's a good thing.
Okay.
And so here's the level of humility in this organization. So I joined the company in, I guess, January, and we're doing a lot of things, and we're sort of creating more formal structure. And so you have some people that are executing at a very high level, doing very senior jobs in this, what is now a fairly large and growing company, and getting people to take titles that had a C in front of it or even a VP in front of it was excruciatingly difficult. Nobody wanted to do that. They were totally comfortable doing what they're doing, and they would do anything asked of them and do anything for the team and grow it. But nobody wanted to somehow have a title that made them seem that they were elevated within that organization, which on one hand was a royal pain. It
was kind of a PIA.
Getting business cards made, so we're going to conferences and stuff like that. And somehow I became the person that had to wrangle people into agreeing to business cards and their titles on that.
Yes.
It took like 2 weeks because nobody would actually agree to anything. Anytime you throw a title, I don't think that's really me. That seems too prestigious. That's what you are. And so you and the CEO thing are very reluctant to take it, but that is effectively what you are in the role you serve.
Yeah.
But what's more fascinating to me, though,
I like more like chief visionary. How about that?
I'll get the business cards printed out.
Can I be the CVO?
Yes, we can make that happen.
Okay, good.
But we do need a CEO at some point.
Some point. Maybe someday.
Yes. But so there's this idea of leadership. And so I joined a senior leadership team here that, including me, is 5 people. Fairly close-knit group. Work. I mean, we have a completely open office. And I know there are arguments for and against that right now, but we largely work in an area, just the 5 of us at the core there, that's probably 50 square feet, maybe. We work very, very closely. And
I actually work in the coffee shop.
You do spend a lot of your time in the coffee shop.
I work in the coffee shop. I just go to the office to meet people.
That's your Zen place.
Yeah.
But one of the things, one of the arguments for the open office is the best discussions we have generally are people sitting back, leaning back in this group, put their feet up at their desk, and we just hash something out. But it is an incredibly close-knit group. And you've been with these people for quite some time now, and you've effectively had to learn leadership on the fly. Mm-hmm. What element of this came naturally, and what element did you have to study like crazy to get good at?
Well, so the study like crazy has really been all of it. Like how to lead a team. It's one thing to have good, productivity habits for yourself. It's substantially harder to actually lead a team to do it.
My dog is assaulting you right now. Weston, take a walk.
He's a good pup. So I'm an audiobook guy. And so I just devour audiobooks in an attempt to figure out how to run a company. And in fact, I joke frequently about how we're, we just did this week when we were at the convention. I kept telling everybody, we're still trying to figure out how to run an operating company, but we've got nice vests.
We had great vests.
We did have great vests.
We were the best dressed people there.
That's true.
Which really is the award that matters probably the most.
That's true. Yeah. So like leading is different than managing. Leading a team is different than being productive. And I think once that clicked, I was helped.
What was there one book or one thing that sticks out? Whether it was someone saying something to you, something you read, that you used to
Start with why.
Okay.
And leaders eat last. I love Simon Sinek. I know you think he's, a little bit over the top sometimes.
He's actually growing on me.
Yeah, he is. He's an idealist.
Who's been bashing millennials?
Is he bashing millennials?
Some might say
I might have missed it.
He actually has had some YouTube things about it. He's got some rather, I'm not going to say controversial.
Well, the world bashes millennials.
They do, and it's like anything. There's some validity, and some of it's overblown.
I think it's all overblown. That's a whole other conversation, but I think
that'll
I
be
think
part two
I think
of
there's
Zen
certain things
aggression.
that millennials have done well to abandon tradition for the sake of tradition.
That's fair. I think it's totally fair.
Yes, because I think they've identified that doing things just to do things is meaningless, and they very much need meaning. Which actually leads me to why I like Simon Sinek. I think he is an idealist, and I think that if you want to lead people, it's wholly uninspiring. Actually, it's inspiring to make money. It is a little bit, but it's uninspiring for that to continually be the chase, more and more and more money, right? We know that chasing more and more and more and more and more money is not good for you. Not that having a lot of money is bad for you, but
that can't be your success indicator.
No, that can't be your success indicator. What I like about Simon Sinek is he argues for a better world where people are inspired to go to work. And he argues for a world where people work together toward a certain goal that's bigger than just making money. It would be wholly uninspiring for me to tell my team, y'all need to work really, really hard so that I can go buy a really nice car. That would be lame. But I think that we believe in something more, to where I wrote about this recently in my blog, where when the economics of success can become the means by which you fund a greater pursuit, it has to be bigger. So making more and more money has to lead to a better and better world. I think that's inspiring.
We talk a lot about what we want this company to mean, not just to those of us that are effectively at the top of the org chart, but to the people that are working throughout this company. We want it to be a place that helps them become better, or
yes,
find a better place in life. And there are some great companies that we see this happening at. A company we reference a lot is In-N-Out.
Right.
In-N-Out is a place that two things generally happen there with their store associates. They either continue to graduate up throughout the company, and you see store managers in In-N-Out actually can spend their career doing that role and live a very high quality of life doing it. They can afford the things that you see in the middle class throughout this country. They can probably send their kids to college relatively easily, and they can really make an impact on the people they work with. That's great. However, for a lot of folks in and out, if they leave the company, it's something that actually acts as a little bit of a springboard or a stepping stone on the way to something better. And
right.
And that was one of the things you expressed to me maybe the first time we met, that you're less concerned with the financials of your company and more what the company means to the community and more specifically to the people that work there.
Yeah. Well, I had a bit of a come to Jesus. I mean, I clearly got into the business to make money. But when I realized I was running an operating company that I was going to be in substantially longer than I was originally anticipating, I figured I got to figure out how to run a company. And if I'm going to run a company, I want it to be something that I can be proud of. And I realized, like, when it's a quick flip, when I'm going to flip an apartment building and we're going to make a bunch of money, that's fun. But when it's not a quick flip and the payoff, the financial reward is pushed further and further out, it can become really discouraging. Unless you're doing it for a bigger reason, right? And so I realized that the things that I really get inspired about are, well, like we talked about already, seeing more in other people than they see in themselves and calling that out of them. Building leaders. Teaching people to look not within to what do I need, but out to what can I give? How can I grow? How can I become better? Building a better community and a better world, and using a car wash to build people and communities, and that's actually inspiring, at least to me, to think through. We're not going to do something that's just, this will make us an extra buck. We're actually playing the longer game of trying to make the world a better place with what we're doing. I remember a conversation. That we had, and I don't remember the specifics around it, but we were brainstorming different ideas, and we said, no, we can't go down that route, because if we go down that route, that would violate the whole purpose of why we're doing things to begin with, even though it might pay us more in the short term. And so I think a lot about how do you keep the economics of success pure, and not just short term, not take, right? So what that means is like I don't want my employees out there. I mean, this is an obvious reason. This would be bad business, but like I think it exemplifies the point. I don't want my employees out there selling something to a customer and them not understanding what they're purchasing. Now I just won the transaction, but I lost the relationship. And I think that if you can build a company that actually matters to the community, I think we can do something great. And so, there's always the story that I tell internally about, we've all seen the poster board signs on the side of the road when people are raising money for the local high school football team or to send kids to camp. In each of those cases, there's a car wash at the center of a community helping people obtain the things that matter most. And so how do we build something that actually matters to the community that we serve? How do we align the stakeholders? Management and shareholders might say we exist to wash as many cars as we possibly can and make a whole bunch of money. Well, that's great, but why do the employees care? Well, the employees only care if that means I can pay them more money. Well, why do the customers care about that? Well, they don't. They don't give a rip. If that's the case, then that's not synergistic. But if I can find a purpose that unites shareholders and the management and the customers and the employees to say this is the common goal, to figure out how do we really matter as a company to the communities that we serve, to the employees that we serve. I think that within that confluence that there's something that'll propel you to success. It's like Elon Musk and his goofy, not a flamethrower, in air quotes that I'm putting up here. That guy's doing things. Hopefully he's on the up and up, but he's doing things that really matter, right? He's taking on the biggest problems in our world, and as a result of that, people will buy not a flamethrower from him, for $500 in order to fund the expansion.
Is that all that thing costs?
Yeah, it was like $500, but it's it's like a propane tank.
It's like a blowtorch, right?
It's like basically a blowtorch,
yeah,
with a thing on the end.
I can make a cheaper one, Elon.
That's right. But the point of that is when you exist for a purpose that is greater, people get behind that.
They do, but it's. I think you touched on the word synergistic earlier, and everything can play into that very, very well. So when you have that belief of what you want to be for the community, the employees like working there, their lives are better off. Customers feel better about doing business with you, and ideally they're better off. They receive some type of better product because the employees are more engaged. Everything plays together in that sense. So when you look back on the time that you have been the CEO, as much as you hate that term, founder, managing director, chief visionary officer.
I'm also a client.
Yes. What's the biggest lesson you've learned? What sticks out to you?
The biggest lesson I've learned. I've learned a ton. I think the biggest lesson that I've learned is how to lead a team. I don't think you manage a team. I think you lead a team. And I think in order to lead a team, you got to know where you want to go. And you have to clearly communicate that vision of where you're going as a leader to your team. And they will help you get there.
Is leadership easy or hard?
It's hard.
I think a lot of people think the other side of that, though. And I think it's
easy.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do it, and I think
bad leadership's easy.
That's for damn sure. But I think it's this idea that
bad leadership is, hey Chris, you go do this. I'm going to go golfing.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think, how do I say this tactfully? There's an element of leadership that has to be simple.
Right.
That doesn't mean that it's not hard to achieve, but the parameters of it are simple. And I think when I had a big epiphany leadership-wise was when I realized that I'm paying attention to too many things. I'm trying to follow the habits and the traits of Jobs, Zuckerberg, and Gates, and all these guys that have seemingly achieved high levels of success. And I sort of realized that what leadership needs is a simplistic approach. That doesn't mean that your ambition or your goals are any lower. In fact, it means they're just as high, if not higher. But you have to take a very real thing. And I think inside all of us, the most important or the core leadership tenets are all there. I think we just ignore them. Mm-hmm. I don't think that when we talk about leadership, we talk about looking at people and understanding their potential. When we talk about things like humility and how to lead humbly, these are things that I think we all know to be true innately, but we sort of ignore it because we start paying attention to what we might see here. Like, you got to be very decisive. You got to be autocratic. You got to be very authoritative as a leader. You can't show any weakness. You can never show any emotion or anything by yourself. And we start listening to these people, and then suddenly we get down this road, and we've got this idea of what we're supposed to be built up, and it's a bunch of crap.
Right.
Inside ourselves, I think we all know what it takes to relate to people, and that is ultimately how you lead.
You're not a leader if you tell people what to do. You're a dictator.
Yeah.
And I think a leader builds something bigger than themselves. And the only way you can build something, meaning if that autocratic dictator were to go away, the vision's gone. The people stop. They don't. There's got to be another autocratic dictator fill in that space. They don't pursue the vision without them.
Yeah.
I think a leader has to have a clear vision of where they want to go, and a leader has to have a self-awareness to know when one of the people they're trying to lead is not producing what they want. The question is it my fault as the leader because I wasn't clear enough, because I didn't cast the vision appropriately? Why is what's been produced not what I was looking for? Or conversely, is it something where the person they're leading needs to be coached in a certain way because they could have done better and they didn't, or something?
Yeah, but translation,
Right.
As the leader, it's always your fault.
Well,
It's basically the point you were making.
It's always your fault because either you should have cast a vision better, or you should have coached this person better, or when the tendency is to blame or ignore, right? So I know my tendency at times can be to, when something's not going the way I think it should, is to inject myself into that and to, in a bad way, lead by example, meaning I just took that and now it's my job. And so now my people are dependent on me, right? And if they're dependent on me, well, I'm not leading, because if I go away, we're screwed. A leader really replicates himself.
Yeah. Well, there's an element to that really gets back to this idea of making the whole worth more than the sum of the parts.
Right.
And I think about this topic a lot, and this might be a little bit of a tangent here, but I think about it a lot when we think of public companies and breakups. Mm-hmm. And for the last 5 years, there have been a lot of people that have targeted Disney, for instance, as a company that needs to be broken up, because you've got ESPN, you've got this parks business, you've got the studio, and a lot of people have said that this company is worth more individually. And I think what people miss in that case is that you have such effective leadership in Bob Iger, and maybe I'm a little bit partial because I worked for the Disney company, and Bob Iger is the CEO, and I was there, and I would take a bullet for Bob Iger. But that leadership makes that company more valuable now because of it. And I think people underestimate what will happen when you have each company operating individually without that centralized leadership. Mm-hmm. And so the way that same paradigm, I think, applies to your team, where we have 5 individuals, let's say, on a team. Well, if each of them is capable of producing 10 units of productivity, whatever that is, on their own, somehow an effective leader has to make their net product at least 51 units of productivity or more.
Right.
Yeah, and that is what effective leadership really does. It makes people be able to produce more than they could independently, and it also makes people's collective product more meaningful.
Right.
I think that idea really gets lost on a lot of leaders. They don't view their responsibility to make more of the team. They actually fall into more of a management role just to make sure this person did this and this person did this. And
right.
That's not leadership at all.
It's much easier to demand and ignore.
Yeah.
Than it is to actually lead.
Well, there's a word for that.
It's not effective.
It's lazy.
Yeah.
That's
not,
kind of what it is.
Yeah, it's not effective. Like some people can do that very, and still produce certain results. But when they're gone, it's over.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so you got this wonderful company that's growing and hopefully growing a lot more here soon. You have 4 kids now.
Yep.
You have a golden retriever.
Yep.
What do you want your legacy to be?
That's a good question. I'm pretty young, so I would like my legacy to be that I didn't die before middle-aged. But barring that, I would like my legacy to be that I inspired people to become better. And that they can.
Just really, really putting that deep-seated belief in them.
Yes.
To do something.
And I think a lot of that stems back to I didn't think I could.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that's part of the reason I'm so fascinated by the story, because I hear you talk about growing up. I never heard Math 095, but that is now going to become
That's a thing.
That's going to become a thing now. But
there's another thing. The math I took in high school was called tech prep. They didn't know what that meant. I'm pretty sure it was like pre-algebra over 4 years.
for 4 years.
I don't know. But I'm pretty sure it was pre-algebra.
I got a serious issue with the school system where you grew up.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to be writing a strongly worded letter after this. But nonetheless, you see the story kind of beginning, and I'm not going to say end, obviously, because it's not the end, but you just see the way things have developed, and I'm endlessly fascinated by that. I'm endlessly fascinated by people that work hard, that become more than they think was possible, and ultimately by people that achieve more than they think was possible. So getting into this at a super granular level, though, because we talked meditation earlier. I know we're both meditators. What's your daily routine like?
The whole daily routine or the meditation one specifically?
No, the whole thing. Because, and I guess for me, I'm always talking about leadership. I think I manage things to a fault.
Yes.
And I'm a creature of habit, and much to my wife's chagrin. I'm
very big into routine. In fact, most of the important things in life, I think you can make them into a routine. And if you got your priorities straight, the important things in life are not massive success. It's health, good relationships, those kind of things. So daily routine. I wake up usually very casually. I don't like to wake up to an alarm, although on occasion I do. So let's say this is a day, no alarm.
I just like to point out you woke up to no alarm on Monday when we were flying out to Dallas.
Yes, that's true. That's true. So let's tell that story first. So we have a 7:40 a.m. flight. You got to be there. Should be there about 6:40, right?
Yeah,
hour early.
Yeah, board about 7:10. You never know. It was Monday morning. You never know what airport traffic's going to be.
So
like.
I woke up at 6:30. I set my alarm though. I mean, that was my phone. It's
7:10. So we're on Southwest, which that's a whole nother story for a different show.
Yeah.
Tim does not like Southwest. Well, he might now, but he didn't at the time. And so it's 7:10. They're calling the A boarding passes up, and I'm on the phone with my wife. She's like, "Oh, you guys ready to go?" I'm like, "I am." I'm looking around. I'm like, I'm not seeing my compatriot here.
I'm coming in hot.
Yeah, which you did, but you made it.
I'm coming in hot. Fortunately, I live pretty close to the airport, so jumped up, quick shower, got to the airport, had to park in the short-term parking, so it cost me.
But by the way, though, you woke up an hour before your flight.
Hour and 10 minutes.
Excuse me. Sorry. Hour and 10 minutes. And you still said, you know what? Cleanliness is next to godliness. I need to take a shower.
Oh, this is a thing. This is a thing. I have been known to take multiple showers a day.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just sometimes it's not exactly in the cards or in the schedule.
No, it's always in the cards.
Okay.
Yeah, no. There is... you might catch me on a lazy Saturday morning not having showered. But I never get squeezed on that.
Okay. It's non-negotiable. Okay.
Non-negotiable. Yeah. So anyway, let's get to the routine. So my routine. I usually do wake up about 6:30, generally. And lately I help my wife get the kids off to school first. So that usually happens around 7:10. So I'm helping her, mostly standing over the children, yelling at them, "Get ready. You got to go." So we get them off to school. I then I use the YouVersion Bible app.
Yep.
And I listen to it and read it at the same time at 2 times normal speed. Helps me focus.
Okay, I didn't know this. I'm curious how you're able to interpret anything when you have it, when you're reading it and have somebody saying it to you.
Yes.
And you find this is better for retention.
100%.
Really? Okay.
100%. It helps focus me so much, right? Because I'm reading it and they're reading it to me, so my mind is not wandering. And I do that for 20 minutes. Then I have I really like the Pray As You Go app. I think it's a Catholic app, although I'm not Catholic, but that doesn't matter. And it's got like a little devotional to read some scripture, kind of give you some thoughts, thought-provoking things, and I will journal my prayers. I find writing them works best. I'm not much of a. I'll throw up a prayer every now and again, but usually prayers of desperation. If it's not written, I probably didn't pray. I don't know if that's good or not, but whatever.
I think it just gets back to how people think.
Yeah, it's kind of how I think.
Some people are readers, some people are thinkers.
I just can't let my mind wander. It's kind of dark in there. So anyway,
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Try that. Okay.
So then, I will then go turn on the steam shower, and I will do push-ups and stretch.
While in the steam shower or
no,
while the shower's
while it's heating.
Okay.
Usually shave if I need to shave. Then I will get in the steam shower, and I've actually been meditating in the steam shower. No visuals, please. I actually really enjoy that.
Do you throw a little eucalyptus in there ever?
I do every now and again.
It's nice. Okay.
Or lavender.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Mostly I'm too lazy to actually do that though. So I don't use this scented stuff. But I do really like the steam shower.
Okay, so you meditate about how long?
Usually 10 minutes. If I've got some extra time, I might go 15 or 20. And that meditation practice usually looks like, trying to relax, and then, going from feet up to my head, and then, open my heart, send some love somewhere. Send some love in a forgiving way. So like someone that I am thinking about or feeling affection for, I'll, kind of think about what I appreciate about them. And then I'll do the same for somebody else that maybe isn't deserving. I don't know. That sounds really bad.
No, I get it though, actually.
Yeah. And then I try to visualize one of the big goals I'm trying to create in life. And I just sort of let my mind relax around those things. So I'm not much for the don't think about anything. I just let my mind wander a little bit and see where it goes. And I feel like I have really good ideas that happen when I do that. But I think that keeps me focused on what I'm trying to do and why.
Is that a hard habit to get into? I know a lot of people that are super driven or super ambitious. I think there's a little bit of a stigma around it that it's soft or it's just hard to calm things down. And
yeah.
I know what I find with it is it actually sort of supercharges my mind.
Yeah. Well, I'm soft, actually, just in general, and so I kind of have to do it because I get super anxious, and so I find that when I don't, I'm snapping at my wife and kids and just not able to relax and think clearly. So I've done it in various forms. I actually recently, it's only been a few months that I've actually been meditating in my shower. And the reason is because I've had a cold and it helps. It's hard to breathe when, you got a chest congestion or whatever. You may notice I'm coughing a bit.
Just a bit.
Yeah, so the steam helps that. So I could still, kind of breathe. But I've tried box breathing and different types of rhythmic breathing, and I've tried guided meditations and different things of that sort. What I really think is happening is I think when you calm yourself down, all the thoughts that are spinning around in your subconscious begin to fall into place and become ordered.
Yep.
And I'm actually not clearly I'm probably more traditional in my belief set, but as far as meditation goes, I kind of lean more on I kind of brain science stuff, in that I think it just, one, it's scientifically proven to help calm you down, and two, I think my thoughts just kind of come into order. So
I find it's a way to, this is going to sound bad, but to reduce the emotion in thoughts. And I think it's a much more effective way to see things for what they are, to see them clearly, and to deal with them. I find that emotions in your mind ratchet up, they play on top of each other, they sort of compound.
yes,
And I find meditation is a very strong reset for that. If I'm dealing with an issue and I can't get my head around something, I'm beating my head against the wall, there are two things that work. One, go for a long run. Sometimes that helps things at all. But I guess in a way that's sort of meditative.
sort of
If I go and
gets you focused.
yeah, it's I don't think about anything. I effectively get my mind in order. I quiet my mind, and suddenly things are a lot more clear, a lot more manageable, a lot easier to deal with.
Right.
I think the key is just recognizing when that's happening. So there is something to be said for having a daily routine with it, and doing it in the morning. I think is great. But I also think when you recognize that feeling in your head that things are starting to get a little bit cluttered,
Yes.
doing it in the middle of the day is massively beneficial.
That and writing. So I find that thoughts spin in my head, and they seem bigger than they actually are. Thoughts or fears. So if I'm thinking one thing, like I don't know how to do this certain thing, and maybe this thought is it just starts spinning in my head. I don't know how to do this. 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 Instead, if I just write what I'm afraid of, I don't know how to do this. It makes me order my thoughts, and it's worthless journaling, but it forces me to say, well, I already wrote that down, so I don't need to think that anymore.
It's like filing it away. That's interesting.
I do that a lot. In fact, I made my son do that the other day when he was doing his homework. He had a writing assignment, and he was very much objecting to not wanting to do it, and it's so hard, and blah, blah, blah. And I locked us away in a room, and I said, I want you to write the worst idea that you have. I want you to write your fears. I want you to write everything the things, everything that's just in your head. Get all the bad ideas out so the good ones can come. And he did that, and he finally finished the assignment. And I was like, see, that wasn't that hard, was it?
That's the same thing, though. Maybe not, but going back to the originals book that we read, where like if you're trying to be persuasive with someone or whatever, you almost lead with all the reasons against for what you're proposing.
Right.
It's like, we're going to get these out of the way. They're gone. They've been dealt with. They can't float around in our heads. They can't clutter things up anymore. Now we're going to focus on the meat of this.
Yep.
I like that.
That's our strategy. When we go look for investors in our car wash company, we're going to tell them, here's why you shouldn't invest.
That's exactly what
Here's why this is a terrible idea.
Yeah. Here's why this is going to stink. Okay, so two questions. One, if you are talking to a room of soon-to-be college graduates, or even better yet, and I don't mean this as a joke, you're talking to a room full of math 095s,
Yes.
students, and you could guarantee that they would read and take to heart what was in one book, what book would that be?
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Okay, why?
That book was also a massive confidence boost. Just, the social awkwardness of, at least my own timidity. I think underperformance is frequently lack of confidence, not lack of competence.
100%.
Sometimes it's lack of competence.
Oh, I think very rarely, to be honest.
Yeah, you're probably right. It's very rarely. I think that if you can boost someone's confidence in a social setting, or just to be able to ask for what they need, because I never asked for what I needed.
Yeah.
That was part of the problem. I never went to my teachers and said, "I don't understand this. I need help." And until later on in life, right? So, but if I would have learned, that's an important lesson that we're trying to teach my kids, especially my oldest son, because we're basically the same person, is that you have to learn to advocate for yourself. And a part of that is learning how to deal socially with just common courtesy and feeling comfortable. And, same thing with the quote I referenced earlier about Tim Ferriss, where he talks about, if you're afraid, so is everybody else. I think understanding that helps boost confidence, and helping boost confidence helps boost performance.
I think so. I think confidence, belief, whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's 95% of the battle.
Yep.
It really, really is.
We're our own worst enemies.
Oh, yeah. That's what's so going back to the guidance counselor again, who I'm going to continue to beat on here. But it's the same thing. You take that kid, and instead of filing him away, you suddenly make that kid believe. Suddenly you've unlocked something here.
Right.
Yeah. What does a perfect day look like for you?
What does a perfect day look like for me? I like most days. Well, we already went through my morning routine, so I nailed that.
But is that a perfect day for you?
Well, that's the perfect morning.
So some people love their routines, and some people look at it with incredible dread.
Oh, I think if you're looking at it with dread, you're doing it wrong.
Agreed. But
in fact, I think a lot of success is identifying what you want and then figuring out the ways to hack yourself. Like BJ Fogg talks about tiny habits. And in fact, I just finished James Clear's book.
Was that Atomic Habits?
Atomic Habits.
That's maybe the fourth or fifth book in my queue here.
Yeah, it's a good book. But they talk about, both of them, actually the same. They talk about how the routine is more important than the habit performed in that routine. So what they mean is, like, I did this myself, actually. I fell off the wagon, so I started again. Is like BJ Fogg, he has a lecture, he talks about, I find this kind of weird, actually, but after he would pee, he would do 2 push-ups. And then, I know it's weird, isn't it? You're looking at me strange. So people listening can't see that, but you're looking at me really strange.
I'm sorry, there was nothing I could say. I'm picturing a public restroom. And
I know, exactly.
Dropping down and knocking 2 push-ups out.
Yeah, so I was thinking about starting that one, but I decided to change it up a little bit. But he would say after he would use the restroom, he would do 2 push-ups, and then he would build on that from there, right? Because it's ridiculous to get down to two push-ups. And so I'm not a particularly fit person. I'm lean, but I'm not a muscle man by any means. And so what I decided to do, I talked about doing push-ups when I turn the steam shower on. I decided when I turn the steam shower on, I'm going to do 1 push-up. Just 1. And then the next day I do 2. And the next day I do 3. And then 4. And just building from there. And I actually got up to 50, which I was impressed with. Yeah. I mean, yoked people like Mr. Chris Book across from me here can do many more than that. But I was pretty impressed with myself to do 50.
See, the point isn't the number, though. The point is the progress.
That's right. Did you read the article about push-ups? There was an article floating around about
you know where it was.
Between
it was Secret Society Slack.
Oh, it was our Secret Society Slack channel. But there's 96% less chance of heart disease for the firefighters that they tested that could do 40 push-ups versus the ones that could only do 10. It's good to do push-ups.
I believe that.
Yeah.
So am I a monster?
It might be sign and not reality, but
I'm sure there are a couple of the reasons for it, but that makes perfect sense. Am I a monster though? If
yes.
Thank you. Every morning while I'm doing my third or fourth pour over, and I've got the guys down there having breakfast, I have that bang out 100 push-ups. I do it with them.
That's pretty impressive.
I'm
Wait,
not.
the kids
I'm not
do
sure.
it too?
Yeah, they do it with me.
Your kids are
2.5.
Wow. How many do they do?
We do. We do 100. So
wait, the kids do 100 push-ups.
They do 100, but we break it into a couple sets, and it's dependent on how high they can count. And so we've recently gotten to doing 4 sets of 25. And so the way we do it, so I've gotten you into the pour over thing. So I do 4 pours on my pour over. And so we pour the water, and then we bang out 25 push-ups while the water's dripping. Go back, pour it again, bang out 25 more.
That's actually a really good idea.
For some reason,
I'm impressed that your kids can do that many push-ups.
They're not military push-ups. We're still working on form.
Sure,
but
of course.
I'm trying to ingrain the habit.
That's impressive.
I think that time's got to be used for something.
You asked me if you were a monster.
You haven't answered that. Well, you did answer that, but that was before you heard what I said. Now am I?
No,
I'm sure there are plenty of people in the neighborhood that would think, yeah, that's pretty psychotic behavior.
No, you're not a monster. You're teaching your kids that they can do something. They can do it.
Yeah, let's focus on that side of it.
Yeah. I think that's important.
I want them to be strong. This is weird. One of my favorite things is I've got a TRX hanging outside from the tree.
What is that?
It's TRX it's a workout thing. It was invented by a SEAL years ago. It very simply, think of 2 gymnastics rings on the end of like parachute cord, and you use it to do a variety of it. You hang it from a tree or whatever, and you do a variety of push-ups and pull-ups with it and all kinds of stuff. And so when the guys go and I just see them go over there and bang out 20 of something they saw me do, I feel very good about that. Because I feel like they're actually working hard at something. Maybe it's a little young for that, but for some reason that kind of matters to me.
I really want to exclaim a phrase in my WWF voice right now, but I don't want to expose you on your podcast.
Let's just say that we balance each other out with my relative intensity and your relative zen.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. I think that's good. Okay, so did you officially select a book?
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Okay, we did that. Did we finish Perfect Day?
Can I have a second book?
That's a fair question. We should say top 3 books.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Not because everybody needs to invest in real estate, but because I think it helps you think big.
They need to understand the dynamics in there for sure.
Right?
It's not necessarily about, it's about real estate, but it's also just about broader careers and development and mindset.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I knew pretty early that I could not have a normal career. That sounds random.
Why is that though?
I like project-based work where I can work hard on something, accomplish it, it's done. Now work on something else.
So you can never be 35 years moving up in a company. And then...
I knew I couldn't do that. And that's why I liked Rich Dad Poor Dad. Because I realized, okay, I can work hard on something. I can turn that into something. And then I can move on.
Makes sense.
I got ADD.
Well, I don't know if it's ADD as much as people are just wired different.
Well, and I think I didn't know the entrepreneur route was an option.
Thinking back on that guidance counselor and all that, one thing that we discount a lot, I think, in the educational system are the trades.
Yeah.
And you can go be a welder or a plumber and still be incredibly entrepreneurial doing it.
Yep.
And I think that gets neglected. Some of the most successful people I know are people that didn't go to college, went to community college, but learned a trade like that and built a business up that way, you can be incredibly entrepreneurial in that setting.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something I don't think it's emphasized enough to kids. All right, third book.
The third book. The book of Proverbs.
Okay, that's fair.
It's wisdom.
Normally I ask people this question, and the first answer is typically Bible. And so as weird as it feels to me, I've had to start saying a lot of times, like, except for that, what are the books you recommend?
Yeah.
That said, the book of Proverbs is, truthfully, I got out of this habit years ago, but I used to just read one every day. You can theoretically have one for every day of the month.
Wisdom books in general. How about the Daily Stoic? I've never read it, but wisdom books in general are incredibly important, I think.
Well, the thing with books like that, though, is you don't have to agree with everything that's in them.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said the book of Proverbs and not the Bible. Not
Yeah.
everybody's going to believe what I believe, but wisdom is important no matter what you believe.
Yeah, like even stuff like Atomic Habits, for instance, which I haven't read yet, but you have. There might be some things in there that you put into play right away, and there might be 60% of the things you're like, you know what, I don't buy that, not for me. And I think that collection of things that might work for one person are totally different than what work for the other.
Right.
But there's generally not going to be a specific formula.
Right. Right. We do a lot of books, mostly audiobooks for me because I fall asleep when I read a book.
Okay, I have it on good authority that you actually listen to books and podcasts in your sleep.
Yes. Well, books I don't. I will listen to books when I sleep, but only books I've already read. I listen to books in my car because I don't want to. It's not a just to get it done kind of thing. I want to learn something from it, so I want to be conscious. But I do fall asleep to listening to something, usually some sort of podcast or actually mostly YouTube, which is the same thing, but video. I don't know why.
There's a wealth of knowledge to be had on YouTube.
Oh, tremendous.
There really is.
Do you ever watch Inside Quest?
No.
Tom Billy something or other, I think. I like his
Never heard
stuff.
of it.
I like his stuff. He's got interesting guys, but he's interviewing guys that are usually written books. So that's how I figure out what book I want to read next.
Interesting. What book are you reading right now?
What's Best Next?
I've had that. You know, the last guest we had on here, Eric Averill, recommended that as well.
Yeah. It's finally gotten interesting.
There's a resounding endorsement.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Gosh, I feel really bad. I quoted it recently on LinkedIn because he said something interesting, something about when what we do doesn't fall in line with what we believe. I forget exactly how it went, but it's bad. There's a lot of good stuff in it. Just the first probably 2/3 of the book is like a theology of work. And I was already like, yeah.
No.
And then it's gotten into more of the interesting, more practical stuff of it almost should have been 2 books, I think. One, a theology of work, and titled such, and the other like a philosophy of maybe not a philosophy, but like a process of how to organize your life.
I think books are too long. And that's not because I'm lazy and I don't want to read them, because I actually enjoy reading the books. But I think sometimes authors make a book longer than it should because they feel that they have to, or somehow that communicates value.
Right.
You know, there was a book, and I know I'm going to spoil this a little bit because I know it's one that you're going to read it, but it was, I got to look up and see what the title is. Oh, it's I don't know if I have the explicit title on the show or not. So it's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fudge.
Oh yeah, that's in my queue. That's the next one up.
The points in the book, tremendously valid. It was probably a book that should have been 1 chapter.
That's hilarious.
And
I don't disagree with you.
But I started looking at all these books I read, and like all these points are so valid, and I don't want to miss any of these points. But I think the author could actually be much more effective if they just shortened it.
Right.
There's an art to that. All right, all that aside. Last question, and this is something that just came to me and something I think I'm going to need to ask every guest on the show. If you were a WWE wrestler, what would your entrance music be?
My entrance music.
I started thinking about this when we were in the car in Dallas with Andrew. But by the way, if you live in Dallas, or actually, you know what, you can go on iHeartRadio right now. 97.1 The Eagle in Dallas is the greatest radio station in the world.
It was legit.
It was, for a couple days, it was hit after hit after hit.
Yeah.
Oh, they were wonderful. And so I was thinking about, as I was watching Andrew play the drums on the steering wheel for 15 minutes.
I have him on video.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, so it's kind of a thing. It's kind of a thing. So he air guitars and air drums, and
he was taking it all.
I record him every now and again. It's pretty fun.
That was a lot of fun.
He flipped me off when I was doing it.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
He caught me this time.
Hey, full credit to him, though. He found this radio station. He changed my life with it.
Oh,
and so I was thinking about is, because every song that came on was great, and I was sitting there thinking, we need entrance music. We need something at the office that when we walk in every day, our entrance music plays.
Yes.
And I was thinking, what would mine be?
What would my entrance music be? Man, I don't even know.
You don't think about this? I think about this every day.
I don't think that's normal.
That's for damn sure.
This is not really WWE entrance music, but I frequently like to play. I stumbled across this. I don't know if it's a group or a radio station, but I stumbled across it on Spotify. The Echelon Effect. I was playing this the other day.
Yeah.
In the car.
It's excellent music to write to.
That music in the background, and it's just music. What do you call that when there's no words?
Instrumental?
It's instrumental. But it's like inspiring music. But it's definitely not something that I'm playing during my WWE.
That's fair, though. I
need something that's way more aggressive for that.
Yeah. Okay, so
I might let you pick that. You're way better at that. That's why you think of that.
Perhaps. Well, okay, so first of all, going back to the Echelon Effect, there's a station on Pandora that I've listened to. I've been listening to the Explosions in the Sky Pandora station. Explosions in the Sky did a lot of the music that was on Friday Night Lights, which is just one. Like, if you're writing a book or you're thinking or something, in fact, I'd be curious if we put this in the background in our meetings at work, if we would have more inspired conversation.
Maybe.
Interesting thought. But nonetheless, like every day I know when I'm driving to the office, I've got the same 2 or 3 songs on.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Every day?
Yeah.
What is it?
Okay, well, one of them depends. If Joy is in the car with me, because sometimes she'll just drop me off at the office and then she'll go on to her office. If she's in the car, we listen to Dropkick Murphys Shipping Up to Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I listen to Walk by Pantera.
Yes.
And then Bulls on Parade by Rage Against the Machine.
Yes.
And then at that point, I'm in a frenzy. I am ready to grab the day by the throat at that point.
That's intimidating.
That's just the routine I
well, and then you come into the office and like I got to calm you down. It's like whoa. We don't need to strangle anybody.
Am I really that aggressive?
No,
I don't think so.
You're not. But it was a funny story.
No, but then then once I get going, then I have to turn on the Vivaldi, which is a complete contradiction.
Yeah, there's that.
But like really, really getting it going, and so I wake up.
You're very cultured.
I don't know if I'd go that far.
Pantera, Vivaldi, yeah.
Yeah. The wine collector listening to Pantera, I guess that's a little bit of a contradiction. But and then I wake up to the Sword, an Iron Swan.
Yeah, you played that for me the other day.
Yeah, that already the neighbors love that when I'm outside playing that at like 3:30 in the morning or something, getting after it.
Mm-hmm.
My poor neighbors. Maybe they do have a reason to hate me. So. All right. This has been enjoyable.
This is fun.
It is. So if our listeners wanted to learn more about Raceway, about you.
Yeah.
Where can they find you on the...
We're all over the place.
Yeah.
RacewayCarWash.com. We're on social. We need to organize this a little better.
We need to get a little bit better at it. But
Raceway Car Wash on Instagram. Raceway Express Car Wash on Facebook.
Yep.
Raceway Car Wash on Twitter.
And you're at?
Timothy Barrett on Instagram. Same on Facebook.
Yep.
I think I'm like DM Tim or something like that on Twitter. I got to look. I'm all over the place.
And on LinkedIn, they can just search you there. Obviously.
Tim Barrett DM, 2 R's, 2 T's.
There you go. Well, be sure to give Tim a follow, give him a shout. If you are in the Phoenix area, if you're in Southern California, if you're in Reno, Tahoe, or Dallas, make sure you swing by Raceway Car Wash or Sierra in
Clean Getaway.
Clean Getaway. I'm trying to go through the
We got a bunch
portfolio
of them.
brands here. Yeah, there are a lot of brand names under the
Working on
umbrella
that
here.
consolidation of the brands.
We will, and there are some reasons that it's not quite there yet.
Yep.
But nonetheless, be sure to check that out. Be sure to follow Tim. Tim on Instagram is a writer. You're a little bit of a deep thinker.
I'm emotional.
I think it's very helpful. I think it's very beneficial. I enjoy reading it. So be sure to like everything he has to say. If you have questions, comments, queries for me, drop me a line, chris@leadingbythebook.com. You can find me LinkedIn, Chris Book, Twitter, Chris Book, and on Instagram now, I believe it's Mr. Chris Book, which sounds a little bit pompous now that I say it out loud, but...
I like that. I was actually thinking about changing my
You're going to go Mr. Tim Barrett?
Yeah. It's a good move.
Okay, I like it.
Just for consistency.
What if you did Tim Barrett CEO?
No, pass. Pass.
All right, well, soon to be Mr. Tim Barrett on Instagram. But definitely drop us a line. Let us know if you got questions. If you enjoy the show, be sure to spread the word. And we will catch you next time. Thanks, guys.